Hey, did you know my first product launch went viral? We sold over $600,000 in 1 month, but actually it didn't start that way. Our first attempt at launching that product was a mega disaster. In this video, I'm gonna walk through how we went from a $17,000 failure to one that went viral just a few months later. If you've always dreamed of launching and scaling a successful e-commerce brand online, you are in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos we release. Hey guys, I'm Khierstyn from Launch and Scale. On this channel, we help deliver practical and actionable strategies to help you launch your next product and also scale your e-commerce brand to design a life around your terms with freedom. So my assumption is that if you are watching this video, you've recently had a product launch either fail or really not do as well as you wanted. And you're now looking for a way to figure out what exactly happened and how you could come back from this loss and fix it to be successful. If that is you, say yes or no in the comments below. When your product launch doesn't go as you wanted it to, what an awful feeling. You know, when you've spent months working on something, you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and your belief and your confidence, and you get your friends and family hyped up for this new product that you're bringing to market, just to have it fail. There's no worse feeling than that when it comes to things online. So this video, I want to put together 5 things to do that we did that helped completely turn our launch and our mentality around when that first time we failed. So my first tip is to get curious. When you have a product launch that failed, whether you have a Kickstarter goal that didn't hit its funding, or you launch your product and you just didn't get the momentum you wanted, you didn't get the number of sales you wanted, first thing is to know that it's not actually a failure. What you're seeing is feedback. So the first thing you want to do is to reframe your experience with what a failure is. A failure is at the end of a conversation. So one thing you need to do is look at this as an opportunity for growth. Get curious and start to identify what are some reasons your product launch could have failed. Now, that first launch that we did that didn't hit its funding goal on Kickstarter, that was a quote failure because it underperformed. And when we looked into why it failed, now product launches failed for one of 3 reasons. We were asking ourselves, did we build up a big enough awareness for this? Did people actually know this was around? Okay. Number 2, is the messaging off? So did our product offer actually appeal to the market we were going after? Or number 3, do people actually want our product? And so we went into kind of detective mode to look to rule out one of those 3 things. And we knew we had the audience because we had spent months building up awareness. After asking health experts and different people in our niche, we knew that the product was a home run, but we just didn't understand why it wasn't selling, which led us to point number 3, is that our messaging was off. It didn't resonate with the customer. So that was actually the golden opportunity that we sunk into once we got curious and identified what the hypothesis is for why the product launch failed. We then went back to the drawing board and started to correct for that. My second tip is once you start to identify why you believe your product launch didn't perform well, you want to talk to your customer and start to dig in more. Get feedback. So that's exactly what we did. The product that we brought to market was a weight loss product. So we started talking to customers that were struggling to lose weight to really understand them, because our hypothesis from step 1 when we got curious was that our messaging was off and we didn't actually position the product in a way the market would have grabbed. So we realized that we didn't really understand the problem. We didn't clarify, we didn't really speak to the problem in our video and in our launch messaging. So we started talking to our customers. There's a couple of tools you can use for that. This PickFu is a great one for instant customer feedback, as well as UserBob for feedback on websites for messaging. Okay, so talk to your customer, get curious, know that you're a student and you can always know more about your customers so that you can get into their head more and understand. Tip number 3 is get clarity. Did you validate your product? Okay. Now, in itself, by asking for the sale, it shows that when you launch your product with the messaging you did to the audience you did, or maybe didn't have, then people didn't want to buy the product in its current form. So after you dig into customer research, you get feedback, and you change your messaging, then step 3 is now asking for a pre-commitment. If you didn't go the extra mile to actually validate your product in the beginning, then what I would do with the new messaging when you are, say, on a phone call doing a customer interview, or you put up new messaging on your website, you start to take pre-commitments. You start to get people to either reserve their product by putting money down like a deposit, or you ask them to fully pre-order the product to, beyond a shadow of a doubt, get validation for that before you move further. Okay. In terms of this, people vote with their wallet. So it's one thing, a product in my mind is not validated if somebody says they will buy it. A product in my mind is validated when you get 3, 4, 5, 10 people actually put money down and vote with their wallets. So the last 2 tips were all about how to correct for messaging and get clear on what your customer wants and what will get them to buy your product. Step number 4 is usually where most people fail in the beginning, and that is that you didn't build up a large enough audience to actually support the goals that you have. Building up an audience is actually talking about your product. It's building up a community. It's building an email list. It's getting in front of a room of people and pitching your product. It is making sure that people actually know your product exists and where to buy it. Okay. That's tip number 4, is build your audience. You build it from the day that you decide to launch your product, from the day you're validating to even after your launch. Tip number 5 is this may be a resource problem. It may be that you don't have the money to invest in a prototype. It may be that you don't have a couple grand to invest in building your audience a little bit to test, etc. If it's a resource problem where you don't have a deficit of skills because you don't know how to bring stuff online and you're an engineer with no marketing background, or your product's just really expensive to bring to market, identify what is the thing that you need to bridge that gap and look for it. So it's usually either funding, which you can get through government grants, loans, crowdfunding. Find a mentor, find somebody who's done this before to help close your gap of knowledge and learn to expedite the problem. So before we get into my last tip, which is a bonus, let's just summarize what we talked through. A product launch is not a failure if it doesn't perform the way you want it to. It needs to be seen as a learning opportunity and allow you to get curious, dig in, diagnose why it didn't work, and then from that, dig in. And we've talked through some practical tips for how you can go to tap into messaging with your customer, get market feedback, get resources, and really learn to close the gap to help you try again. Just because a launch failed does not mean it's the product necessarily, okay? You may have an amazing product, but you need to learn how to communicate to the market, or you may need a mentor, you need funding, etc. So that brings me to my last tip. You just learned why your product launch may have failed and how to course correct. And since you stayed to the end, my last tip is a free gift to you. So if you are committed to relaunching your product and getting curious, I have dropped a link to our launch checklist that you can grab just below this video and retry your launch. Apart from that, thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't, be sure to hit that subscribe button for successfully launching and scaling your e-commerce brand. And apart from that, jump to our next video. Okay, take care.